Hi everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey Books. I'm Ellie. Today we're in a little bit of a different location. I thought I would try something a little different out and we'll kind of see how it works. Let me know what you think. Obviously it's a little bit more of a booktubey type background with actual books in there. But we'll kind of see how it goes with sound and whatnot like that. But today it is time for my mid-month wrap up for October, and I have had a pretty good month so far this month. I've read 10 books, pretty happy with that, and let's just jump into them. So I started the month off with Clouds of Witness by Dorothy L. Sayers. This is the second book in the Lord Peter Wimsey series. I read the first one in January, picked these first two up while I was in London in January. I enjoyed the first one, but this second one was going to be kind of my make or break for this series, and I really loved it. So I'll definitely be continuing on. I have book 3 on hold at the library already, but I am hoping to eventually collect them all in these editions. Just trying to be good and not buy too many books. So, library for now. Next up, I finally got to Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Morano Garcia. I really like this. I feel like I'm one of the last people to read this book, and I was a little bit nervous because it is very Rebecca inspired, and Rebecca's one of my favourite books, so a little bit worried about that. Also horror, not a horror fan, complete wimp, can't do it. But I actually really like this, and I think maybe partly some of that was because I didn't really understand the horror bits. In terms of, I didn't really know what she was necessarily describing, and maybe that would kind of be a bad thing, but it meant that I wasn't scared of it. And I think that was just, like, her writing is so atmospheric and really beautiful, so I think that was just me not wanting to understand what the horror bits were. So I wasn't like terrified out of my wits, but it was creepy and I liked it. So very excited that I read it, and I am now one of everyone else who likes this book. So yay. And of course, it was my birthday month. It is my birthday month. So I thought I would reread some fun books that I loved. And I started off with Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. This was the first really historical romance that I read and loved, and the second book just came out and I have it, so I wanted to reread this one because I didn't feel like I remembered enough of the characters to go into it. Like most historical romances, it is more of a companion novel, but usually I read romances pretty soon after one another. So this has been a whole year, loved it, still really great, very excited to pick up the second one, hopefully by the end of the month. Next up, at the start of the year, my best friend Angel and I made a list for one another where we picked books from our TBRs and told each other to read them. We're doing pretty well. I think we picked 5 at the start of the year, and this was my 4th one. So I picked up Sick Kids in Love by Hannah Moskowitz. I bought this one when it came out in, I think it was November last year, so it's been sitting on my shelf for almost a whole year. Was kind of nervous about this because it is chronic illness rep / disability rep, and while it is own voices and all that sort of stuff, I wasn't scared that the rep would be bad. I was more scared that, I don't know, it would be good. Does that make any sense? I know it was really great. And it was, to the point where it's kind of a bit nerve-wracking almost at times, because it felt it felt so real that it was kind of giving me anxiety at times, and like certain things that different people say to both of the main characters have chronic illness, disabilities. So some of the things that people said to them, and like some of the way that her friends in particular acted, just really brought me back to the days of high school, where the majority of my friends just didn't get it. So it was, it was difficult to read it for that, even though I really enjoyed those bits. But that kind of brings me into the part where I didn't like about the book, which was everyone. I didn't like any of the characters in this, except for maybe Sasha's siblings. Sasha being the love interest. His siblings were pretty cool. They were hardly in it, but I liked them. Everyone else just kind of annoyed me. And like, I loved the main characters, and I loved their representation of chronic illness and everything they were saying about that, but I didn't really like them as people. So, great book. Characters, not really for me. And then, of course, I had to read Rebecca this month. I didn't think I was going to finish this in time for the end of the read-along / the new adaptation coming out on the 21st. And I was like 60 pages in for a really long time. And then I just sat down one day and just finished it. Loved it, always love it. One of my favorite books. I think it was Danny from Spinelli Speaks was saying in her video when she was reading this a couple of weeks ago now, I think, that it was very slow. And I kind of remembered that, but I didn't realize how slow it really is until I had started rereading it. And I was like, wow, okay, I can understand why so many people don't get through this, because I was like, the only thing that was really holding me on was knowing what was to come. And I didn't realize how slow it was. I still love it, but it was, these times where I was like, wow, if I was reading this for the first time now, I don't know that I'd get through it. It did take me a couple of times the first time around. So I think it's one of those things where, something's been a favorite for so long that when you kind of come back to it and look at it with slightly different eyes, you see different things. And there was a lot in here that I picked up on that I didn't pick up on when I think I read this in 2013, so I would have been 17 turning 18. And there's a lot of stuff I just, that I really enjoyed picking up. Next up, we had a bit of a rough patch in this period of the month. I was having a really hard time finishing Rebecca, but I didn't want to be reading anything else, and but I did. This is Superior by Angelina Saini. I've been reading this one since August, and I finally just admitted defeat and DNF'd this. I was reading a chapter maybe a week. Like, it would take me an entire week to get through a chapter, if not longer. And it's a really interesting book. I just don't think that Sanini's writing is for me. This is the second of her books that I've DNF'd. I tried to read Inferior last year or the year before. Couldn't get into it. And this is also, they're both very science-based. This is looking at race science. It's a very interesting topic, but it just wasn't for me. I really, really tried, and I think I made it like 160 pages in, and I had, I think, about 120 pages to go, and I was just like, no, this is it. This is where I fold and admit that I'm just not going to finish this book. So again, I always say this with books, but I really think that they're so subjective. Just because I didn't enjoy it doesn't mean that it's a bad book. I'm just not a very scientifically minded person. So it was hard for me to follow, and I have no idea what most of these words meant. I then thought that I would read something a little bit more fun and light. So I picked up A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. This is like sirens, and it talks about racism again, and it's kind of complicated because it talks about this young woman who was murdered, but she was a siren, and as well as, I believe she's also, they're all women of colour, I think, all the sirens. So it was, it had lots to say about society and victim blaming and stuff like that. Really enjoyed that aspect. Not really a siren mermaidy person, but I liked that. But this just kind of, otherwise, just kind of fell flat for me, and I don't really know what it was, but it just didn't quite blow me away like I was expecting something, and I don't know what that thing was, but it wasn't in here, if that makes sense. Again, not a bad book, I just really wasn't in the mood for this. It was possibly kind of a stupid one for me to pick up at the time, and maybe I should have kind of stuck with like kind of a darker theme after Rebecca, and maybe gone something a little bit more gothic creepy, because I think I was more in that mood. But we read it anyway. We got through it. Okay. And then we took a complete turn, went back to the kind of creepy vibes, and I read Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a book about a young girl, or a young woman, I guess. She's 16, and she was imprisoned for killing a baby when she was 9, and she's living in a group home, and she finds out she's pregnant, and it's all about that and dealing with everything that kind of goes along with being in a group home with all these other girls and all this sort of stuff, being a pregnant teen and all this stuff. But also the overarching thing is, did she actually do it? So very like twisty book, and really makes you think, and it's just like, it's one of those books that really like plays with you. Like, you start believing one thing, and then something will happen, and you'll be like, oh no, you know, she didn't do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, she did do it. No, she didn't. Yes, she did. No, she didn't. Incredible. Just like blew my mind. And also just like, it was just one of those books that when I finished it and I put it down, I was literally like shaking. Like my hands were like shaking so bad that it was just like, oh, I just can't put into words how that made me feel. The only thing I will say is that I feel like after every Tiffany D. Jackson book, and I've read 2 now, you need like a support group. Like, you need like a group to go to be like, I just finished it, whichever one it is, and just be like, I have feelings, I have a lot of emotions, and I just need to talk to someone about this. Which brings me to, if you've read this, please let me know, because no one I know has read this, and I would really like to talk about it with someone, because like I just said, I have a lot of feelings and emotions about it. and they're just kind of being bottled up at the moment. And then after that one, I decided I would need another happy book, and this one happened to work out really well. So I was buddy reading this with my best friend Angel. The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. This is the first book in the Bridgerton series. We wanted to read it because the TV show is coming out. It didn't have a date when we started reading, but it's now coming out on the 25th of December. I'm so excited. I read this, and I read the first 50 pages as an ebook a couple of months ago, and I was really enjoying it, but it was a Kindle book, so it was just on my phone, and it's awful to read. And I used to read a lot of Kindle books when I was going places and would be on trains and things, but obviously right now that's not a thing. So instead, I got a physical copy, reread those first 50 pages, and was just like, yeah, I really enjoy this. Read it before, blah blah blah, and then I just kept reading, and then it had been 2 hours, and I'd finished the book, which was not in the original plan. Originally, I was gonna read the first little bit, and then it was already 9 o'clock at night, so I was gonna read that little bit, and then I was just gonna maybe watch a movie or something, and then just eventually when I fell asleep, that would be cool. And then I read the entire thing, and then it was 11:30 at night, and I was just so happy that I haven't been able to read anything since. I haven't finished anything. I've started so many things. Why do I do this to myself? That I just love books so much that once I finish one I really, really like, I either read all the things, or I read none of the things. And this was one of those none of the things times. So yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing. Probably one of my favorite historical romances, but also I would like to read other things. If you would let me, please, brain. Please. Yes. Okay. Those are my books for the first half of October. Let's all hope I can finish a few more books in the rest of the month. I have bought a lot of books this month, and my TBR isn't quite balancing the way I wish it would. So lots of reading needs to be done, and hopefully I can do that. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this new setup, and I will see you all on Friday, which is my non-fiction November TBR. That sounds right. Does anyone else just not know what the date is anymore? No. My brain does not compute. But I will see you all then.